So it's a strawberry sour cherry glucosamine, what do you call it? Slushie, blackberries, and that beautiful salad. James is having basically the same sort of meal as yesterday because he liked it. He requested. So this is a blackberry smoothie, and it's basically all blackberries with some spirulina powder and water. And James is going to talk about On the Trail of the Assassins again.
Or as I characterize it, on the Assassins of the Trail.
Okay. So I'll show you my pretty dress of today, but I hadn't realized how big this was. I used to fit this, and I never liked wearing the strapless thing. I was always worried that they would become a belt, but this is too big and so it would become a belt, I think. So I forgot to wear it while I was dieting down, but I never really cared for it. I would always wear it with this, and I always worried that that it would be a belt. And this is see-through anyway, so it wouldn't hurt to hide the fact that it would be a belt. So anyway, James is going to talk this meal.
I just want to finish the eggs, so you talk about it a bit more.
Oh, okay.
I always like eating eggs right away when they're warm because they've been sitting on. I think they were cold.
Well, and yeah, I nuked the stuff, so mine I didn't. So my hard-boiled eggs are cold, and I haven't allowed myself egg yolks up until this point.
There's something you got to be careful about.
The cholesterol and stuff. But I decided today, rather than normally what I've been doing with this is basically the same salad I've been eating almost every day. Just this time it's with Brussels sprouts. I don't like the Brussels sprouts as much, but
as I do.
Yeah, and as much as red cabbage and stuff like that. So anyway, normally I'd put some sort of nut butter, like the oil that I saved off of the top of the nut butters or seed butters, on this, but I'm out, and so I could drizzle some tahini on it or something like that. But I decided, why not go for the egg yolks as well as the whites, and we'll see how that is.
Oh, that tastes like summertime.
Yeah, it's all right. Eggs with yolks in them taste way better than just egg whites.
I was talking about the blackberry smoothie.
Yep.
Because I was a little bit thirsty after our hike. Not much, but a bit. Started out pretty cool.
It ended up really hot.
So I've been talking about the Assassins of the Trail. So I've talked about Jim Garrison before, and he's partly uncovered the trail, but partly covered it by emphasizing the role of the CIA in the assassination, and by pretty close to totally covering up the role of the mafia in the assassination. The mafia played the leading role in the cover-up because they're the ones who are doing the whacking, from what I can tell. Almost every case, whacking of witnesses. And some cases the witnesses were very culpable. They were whacking themselves. They, I think the only one who ended up, main mafia collaborators that didn't get killed was the head of the mafia in New Orleans, Carlos Marcello, or they probably mispronounce it, Marcello. It's funny, he goes with they go with the Spanish pronunciation of his name and spelling. It should really be Carlo. I suspect that was his original name. Although he might have been a native of Guatemala. He did spend some time in Guatemala. Of course, a lot of it was latter day. He was forcibly removed at the order of Robert Kennedy, who was then Attorney General. He was just picked up and deported to, I guess, pretty well summarily. I don't know how technically legal it was, to Guatemala. He managed to make it back illegally. I think one of the thugs in here, who was, according to Jim Garrison, was more of a CIA type, but it's this guy here. He's actually a pilot, so who suffered from alopecia. Hopefully I'm not mispronouncing that too badly. It's where you're not bald all over, but bald all over. And you can see he's wearing a very bad
eyebrows.
Bad eyebrows and a bad wig and stuff like that, and a very stunned look on his face, but he's anything but stunned.
I had to get rid of the oaks.
He styled himself as either a doctor or professor, maybe both. Did cancer research. I don't think anything came out of it. Was he the one? I think the one thing that came of it was someone figured out how to give Jack Ruby cancer in prison. It was probably guards who was administering it. I think Ruby was complaining about getting shots that he didn't want. He developed cancer kind of like overnight and died. Like a fly when he was granted another trial. There's no way the mafia wanted another trial. More information. Look at this fake photo. What part of it is fake? Are you good with that AI stuff? Here's one of two photos. Okay. The other photo, the body isn't quite as big, or it's bigger, and it has exactly the same head photo. That's Lee Harvey Oswald's face. Really stupid, very poorly done. So here's one of the things. He's some idiot was posing in Lee Harvey Oswald's backyard, and then they took off his face, just in the photo. Who knows what they did to that person who was there. He could have ended up killed. And then they got a picture of Harvey Oswald, and they put it on the two different pictures. It was like,
well, I don't know why.
Well,
because I'm sure there were pictures of him holding a gun.
I don't think so. He's two guns. He's got one on his hip. And then he's got a commie paper. The other one is a different commie paper. I think one might have been called a Daily Worker or something like that. I think the other one was. Anyway, and I kind of think Jim Garrison did that, as I mentioned before. Like misdirected away from the mafia because he wanted to survive. Anyway, the guy who ended up, I think, dying a natural death of the main plotters in the mafia was head of the New Orleans mafia. They say it's the oldest mafia in the United States, and it might be almost true. So Carlos Marcelo Santos Traficante, he ended up getting killed, and he was a pretty mean something or other, because he from Tampa Bay he orchestrated the assassination of one of the main mafia members in New York. It's a long ways away, and I think his name was Alberto Anastasia, and I think it was what they call a gangland killing. I think it took place in a barbershop or something like that. Actually, it caused so much stir in the mafia world, they had to have a big conclave. That's what they call when when they get together and elect a new pope. And it was like the Catholic Church. So they had to have a conclave in something like Appalachian or whatever it's called in New York, upper New York. It was to kind of settle things down. Okay, now you're the boss, all this sort of stuff. We can't be whacking each other, so on and so forth. That's the one that was busted by members of law enforcement, and it was amazing. I don't know how many creeps were there. Was it over 50, 70 or something like that? And J. Edgar Hoover is still maintaining something like manfully that there was no such thing as Cosa Nostra Mafia in the United States. Of course, he had that. It wouldn't have been far from what is it called, Saratoga, New York, Sarasota, one or the other. One of those is in Florida. The other one has horse racing. So he was bad into horse racing, and I suspect into gambling, and I suspect he had gambling debts or something like that. He also was as gay as a jay, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just don't let that be a problem. You know, if you've got characteristic, don't let it become a problem for other people. It made it so he was susceptible to blackmail. In this case, it would be blackmail. The mafia would be saying, "You want to bust us? What are you going to do about it?" And I gather J. Edgar Hoover's second in command, was it Clyde Tolson? It wasn't Cartha Deloach. Was his almost like live-in lover, whatever, stuff like that. So, you can't be, if you're going to do that sort of stuff and people got a problem with it, they shouldn't, but that's the way it is. You can't be in a position of trust like that. Where if you are in a position of trust, you'd better be able to take the buffets of fate and so on and so forth. You've got to take down the mafia. You cannot, when you're the head of the FBI, you can't be. And it was decades. He was just letting them do basically whatever. Shameful. Anyway, so Santos Trafficante was really a mean, you-know-what. He got whacked, and I'm pretty sure it was on the orders of whatever his name was, Marcello. And then Sam Giancana, head of the mafia in Chicago. That would have been the second biggest city in the United States, I think, at that point in time. No lower than third. He got whacked. Johnny Rosselli, probably whacked by Santo Trafficante. Trafficante was a real mean, you-know-what. So Johnny Rosselli was basically a mafia kingpin for Sam Giancana out of Chicago, but Rosselli worked in Los Angeles and Las Vegas, but he ended up kind of swimming in the Bay of Biscay, which is just on the other side of the continent from Los Angeles, and unfortunately he was in an oil drum, and he was in a variety of different pieces. It's like a jigsaw puzzle that had been disassembled and not put back together again, and floating around there. I think they probably, someone discovered it semi-innocently or fake innocently because they wanted it to be known that that's how he ended up. Oftentimes mafia killings are that way. They can't be prosecuted for it because anyone who wants to testify against them doesn't get a chance to. They end up dead, or the smarter people end up being intimidated not testify and stuff like that. So all these major figures, they've just gone to Rapunzel except for Carlos Marcello. So what with Jim Garrison? He's just a lowly DA. Carlos Marcello, it said in one book, was the most powerful guy in all of Louisiana. Possibly the richest guy in all of Louisiana. Definitely the most powerful, because you went against him. It wasn't just money, it was just muscle. You would get dead. It's not as though you'd get bought out or bribed out or anything like that. You just get killed. These guys are stone cold killers. So I guess that's the one way I try to look positively at Jim Garrison. He did due diligence initially. He went after Guy Bannister pretty well right away. He started investigating him. I think it's basically the day of Kennedy's assassination. This is even before Jack Ruby whacked, a couple of days before Jack Ruby whacked Lee Harvey Oswald. So here's Perry Russo. I guess he had certain relationships with Clay Shaw, who Jim Garrison tried to prosecute unsuccessfully. I think the trial was kind of sort of initiated 67, I think 69 was preliminary hearing. It says here March the 14th. So here's Clay Shaw. It's supposed to be a liberal or stuff like that, but there were witnesses that had him plotting with Lee Harvey Oswald, and I think it was David Ferry and maybe Guy Bannister to assassinate John F. Kennedy. Just because now he was a member of the CIA, at least an associate member, or the CIA admitted that at least at one point in time, ultimately they did, that he was, and that was Dick Helms who admitted it twice. Just in case there was any, understand he was being forced to testify, and the second time he said, well, if I said it, I said it, like Dick Helms. His main autobiography is The Man Who Kept the Secrets, Dick Helms. And one of the big problems with him is he kept the secrets from his president, John F. Kennedy, one time. Probably was keeping the secrets from, and he wasn't even head of the CIA at that point in time. He was, I think, deputy director for plans, and then I think he ended up being director of plans before Kennedy was assassinated. I almost said before he assassinated Kennedy, but I don't think it had anything to do with the actual assassination, aside from developing plots again behind Kennedy's back and Robert Kennedy's back to assassinate Fidel Castro, and those plots became known to the mafia because they were involved in it, and at the CIA's instigation, and they just turned the thing around on the CIA and on the country. But Clay Shaw, later he was acquitted of the whole thing, but he was a spy. And do spies ever, here's something, folks. Like, am I involved in talking about conspiracy theory? They say about 80% of people in the United States, it's probably higher now, these figures are somewhat out of date, believe that JFK was killed as part of a conspiracy. But you folks are saying, oh, that's just conspiracy theory. What do spy agencies do if they're not involved in conspiracy? This is the KGB, CIA, the MI5 and 6, MIs 5 and 6, the Mossad in Israel, wherever. If they're not doing conspiracy, folks, they're not doing the job. It's just a matter of what sort of conspiracies are they doing. Wake up and smell the coffee, you idiots. Now, I'm not the kind of person that goes out there and jumps on every conspiracy theory or whatever you want to call it. This might be one of the only ones that there's actual substance to. For example, what's behind flying saucers? When I was in 1967, got a book out of our A.E. Cross library. It was the junior high I was going to, about flying saucers. I'm going, no. Flying saucers were experiments done by folks like the CIA, or working with the CIA, or working with the United States Air Force. And of course, those folks they're involved in a conspiracy. They don't want people to know about it. They don't want the Russians to know about it. They want people spooked out about Roswell, New Mexico. They want people spooked out about, where's that next to? It's right next to White Sands. What do they call it? Firing range? Artillery range? It's not artillery. That's where Alamogordo is there. And that's right next door to the Trinity site. Do you think they wanted people to know? I mean, can you imagine when they blew that thing up, that bomb, the first bomb? It was a test. The first bomb wasn't Hiroshima. I think it was something like the 23rd of July, 1945. I remember it like yesterday because I saw that. No, I wasn't quite alive. But it was lucky because it was a kind of day where there was intermittent thunderstorms. Not even showers, thunderstorms apparently, or night. And so they were just saying, oh, it was like a huge lightning flash or something like that. Of course, a lot of cows died downstream, downwind of the thing. But, it's a fairly deserted kind of area, and so on and so forth. And, of course, they had to operate a conspiracy there. So it's all to their, benefit if they go around and say, well, it's flying saucers. So, yeah, you'd have men in black going around telling people it's flying saucers and stuff like that. But those would just be some sort of agents, not necessarily CIA agents. It could be anything. It could be, I don't know who handles intelligence. DIA, is that what it's called? Defense Intelligence Agency. Whatever, National Security Agency. I think that's more to protect from outside interference and penetration and stuff like that. But if they're not doing stuff like that, they're just not doing the job. So, yeah, there is a conspiracy about flying saucers. It's just not from outer space. But anyone is going to, all this stuff's made up. Oh, come off of it. Like the first thing that they found was a weather balloon. Well, was it really a weather balloon? No, it would be a spy balloon that came down. And then, of course, the story, it was a spaceship and all that sort of stuff. I don't think the Russians would have bought it for a moment. But they don't want people snooping around and so on and so forth. It got a little bit off base, or where was it launched? They call it, the Roswell Airport is now called something like the Industrial Airport. Have you ever heard that designation? It's International Airport or Local Airport. I suspect it's still a CIA airport, Industrial Airport. Come off of it. So here's some folks. Oh, what's wrong with this picture? Do you notice how these the cops have caught these guys, these scamps? They're trying not to show their faces. The guy, I think that's the leader, he's hiding from the camera. Do you see his feet behind this second guy here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's hiding. He's wearing a hat. Doesn't take the hat off. Probably was suffering. Some people say that's E. Howard Hunt. I don't think so, but doesn't quite look like him. But I suspect he had a bald patch. Anyway, you notice people pointed out, look at these guys. These guys were suspects. They were the... Yeah, I'll show you here. So, here's the grassy knoll. Here's where Kennedy was when he was shot. The first shot was just to get attention, to draw attention away. It would probably come from the Dell Tech's building here, or here's the depository where Lee Harvey Oswald worked. He was on the second floor, I think, when it happened. The shots were supposed to come from the sixth floor. I think if a shot came from there, it would have just come from the roof. Why would it have been where people work? You can go up to the roof. There was a big clock up there. You just hide behind it, right? Why would you mess around? Anyway, and they brought a rifle down from the roof, incidentally. Here's the problem. They brought a rifle down from the roof. They were displaying it around, the local cops. They found a rifle up on the sixth floor where the shooting was supposed to be taking place. It was a Mauser, or they say Mauser. And then they changed it. Oh, no. It sounds... They reported an Enfield rifle, a British rifle, and then a Mannlicher Carcano. They mispronounce it. I'm pretty sure they'd say Mannlicher Carcano. That's an Italian thing. So they 4 different rifles from this one building. You see what I'm saying? And it's them saying it. Okay? Problems. But at any rate, they're taking the killing shot came from here. See how close it is? Grassy knoll.
Yeah.
The first shot hit him right in the throat from the front, and then the second one, he was getting even closer, right? So really close. This is a long ways away. There were trees here, elm trees. I think they're elm trees. This is called Elm Street. Okay. Anyway, there's a railroad overpass. And right up here, somewhere here, is a guy called Leo Bowers, about 14 feet up in the air, and he's looking at the trains going by. But he'd be looking at the parade coming through. He said he saw a motion. It was probably guns being fired, and then he saw smoke coming up. And people are hiding things, doing conspiracy stuff. They're saying, they're smokeless guns. How do you know they were smokeless guns? For one thing. And even, apparently, I don't know much about them, by the way, apparently even so-called smokeless guns. You know how advertisers or propagandists, they sell something as a smokeless gun, but are they really? No. Okay? You know, it cleans 100% of the dirt out of your stuff. Yeah, like really? Why would you need bleach? Okay, so he sees this sort of stuff, and then he sees guys. One guy, I think a couple of guys peeling off. He saw. They figured there were two guys here. One at one end of this. There's a parking lot in here. See, they show this ending here, but the parking lot actually curves in here. Mm-hmm. And it was for railway workers, and it had been closed off, right, during the parade. Mm-hmm. Now, he sees two people tear off, mm-hmm. and one guy tosses what looks like is a gun, and he sees them get on a train that's mm-hmm. just getting ready to take off. Mm-hmm. So he's a smart guy. Leo Bowers, this is Dave. He said, "Stop that train." Mm-hmm. This guy's a hero. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Stop that train. And they did. Mm-hmm. And then the police, almost everyone, you'll see there's so many brave people. You can see. There's all sorts of cameras down here. They're coming after these killers. Can mm-hmm. you imagine? Right, it's not just cops. They're just ordinary citizens running to capture these guys. I wish they'd caught them and just stomped them into the earth.
Yeah.
I wish they'd caught them. But the cops did catch them. Now here they are. These are suspects. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with these guys carrying their weapons? Where should those weapons be pointed at? Right at these guys' heads. Mm. You know what I'm saying? Mm. But people pointed that out. Mm. Now these guys, we have no record who they are. Mm. They got no identification from them. Mm. They were allowed to walk. Mm. Despite the fact what Lee Bowers said. Saw them running from the top of the grassy knoll. This place, you know, like it was picked up wonderfully because, okay, this is the grassy knoll here. Right here, there's a fence here, mm-hmm. fence here, with hedge around it. High fence mm-hmm. and hedge around it. You wouldn't be able to see them here. You see what mm-hmm. I'm saying? Hidden. It's incredible. So, and of course, Lee Bowers died in a car accident. But they're saying, how did he die? Like, he just lost control of his car, went into something like an overpass at Putnam, boom, he's dead. Yeah. You know, you can give people stuff. I think he wasn't that young. You give them stuff so they have a little heart attack when they're driving, or whatever. And so they're, you know, like, who are these guys? Now, I can't believe that with the kind of technology they've got now, they've got very much clearer pictures.
Yeah, you think they could do some sort of face recognition?
Just track them down.
Sure.
Yeah. They'd be agents or mafia members or a combination of things. Mm-hmm. How much time? 5?
16.
16 minutes?
No, seconds.
Okay. Anyway, more on this stuff later. I just finished up a book on covering up the mafia thing. So it's all again, it's about the CIA and the military, everyone